as the first speaker, Christos, speaker 2, Miguel, and the third speaker is Dipan, and for the replay speaker is Christos. And we have DTE as the opposition team. First speaker is Naufal, second is third Andin, and for the replay is Naufal. Okay, and now I call. Untuk POI-nya mau gimana ya? Sorry.
Potong pakai mic aja, on mic.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now I call upon the first speaker from the government team.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Feel free to POI by interruption. Just making sure the time is being panitia. Okay. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Dear Mr. Speaker, we as the government do not want to give employers access to the criminal records of potential employees. Why? Currently, many places allow employers, to use criminal records when making hiring decisions. Although when they make these types of hiring decisions, the employer usually must show that there was a business necessity for making the hiring decision. This is possible to do, and it is possible to make this process go through. However, this is often easily abused as a tool of discrimination, particularly regarding minorities. So, what do these potential employees look like in this debate? First of all, it is likely to be the kind of people who are capable of preparing a job application in the first place, be able to go to an interview and seek out companies that are hiring. What this means are people who have the mental capability and the ethical judgment and are not insane psycho mass murderers. Instead, they are likely to be people who were desperate or found them in an unlucky situation in the past, or struggling perhaps with a history of addiction due to bad life circumstances. Now, these people are free people who have served their sentence and have been done justice and are seeking to reintegrate back to society and contribute to their community, or to just get a decent living through a legal and fair means of getting a job. And most people who find themselves in this situation tends to be racial minorities, the poor, the homeless, the people who are already vulnerable in our society to be discriminated for in the first place for their status, appearance, identity, and so on. In this case, the government will not give employers access to the criminal records of potential employees. This means that by governing bodies such as the justice legal institutions in their database with specific limitations and tight regulations to who can access such data for what reasons. And unless under extreme situations, any request to view such data on the basis of hiring potential employees is denied. Potential employees shall not be demanded for their criminal record, and any companies that does so should be tried for an act of discrimination. We will argue as government that our proposal will discuss how allowing access to such data is harmful towards vulnerable people whose lives are already worse off, just seeking to try for a second chance, and how allowing such access will likely target suffering minorities who are vulnerable the most. And 2, we will try to prove how denying access provides a more objective and fair approach towards hiring potential employees. Now, opposition may say that the people who have a criminal record should be inspected due to the tendency to misbehave or have a lack of integrity again to the job. However, we believe that is unlikely. Rather, these people are people who have struggled to reintegrate back through society. They have lifted themselves back to their feet and trying to make a new chapter in their life. They used all their blood, sweat, and tears to send in and prepare the job application just to get a chance to get into the interview room. This shows that the person is determined to do what it takes to perform their job role as good as they can. Now, dear speaker, I will give you one point of argument with 3 subpoints. I assert that it is likely that the potential employee in question will experience discrimination due to the access of this data. However, the criminal records are likely to only be petty crimes which are not deserving of this discrimination that is excessively harmful. Why? First of all, high-level discriminations should already be serving heavy sentences, which would be disallowing them from applying in the first place. This means that it is likely petty crimes is going to be what is being considered from these potential employers, such as petty stealing due to desperate life situation, or wrongfully convicted due to a form of racial discrimination, or even simply dumb things they did in their youth. This is significant because this kind of discrimination can even extend to from things that happened in the past years into their future, being a big, ugly, permanent blotch on their history when trying to find a job again in the future. What this means, my second point, is that any access to such data is likely to lead to potential discrimination against a potential employee. And that discrimination will give excessive damage to their chance at building a stable futures or changing towards better careers even more in the future. This damage due to discrimination is simply unbalanced and undeserving because these people are already now free people and already have served the sentence in justice. And therefore, they are now receiving an excessive punishment that is not fair because they cannot get a new job, they cannot grow their career, they cannot get a higher income, they cannot get a better quality of life, they cannot get food on the table to support them and the people they love and care. Third of all, what's worse is that this is done on a basis of simply seeing a record and right away discriminating. These days, many employers use automated systems that won't even allow the hiring team to even see the application from people who have even a single criminal record. We pose the question, what even is the significance for a criminal record in applying a job? What matters is their skills in their CV that allow them to perform their job. So we see that this is a significant issue, especially for minorities. Many Black and Latino people, due to the life circumstances they found themselves in, especially easily the target for law enforcement. By default, society they live in already makes them more likely to experience charges of crime unfairly. Thus, any access to a criminal record results in a disproportionate discrimination, which locks out a significant amount of minority and society and disparate people from achieving a better life, leading them to further decline into poverty and desperation and suffering. And thus, we believe as government that access to such criminal record data must be limited from potential employers. And we believe that you should vote for government for a fair and just system of employment. Thank you.
Okay, I call upon the first speaker from the opposition team.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Muhammad Nawal Faza, and I'm here as the first speaker of the opposition. And the motion, this House will not give employers access to criminal records of potential employees. So we, as the oppositions, deny this motion. We will give employers access to criminal records of potential employees. Why? Because we have many good reasons for it. But first, we would like to clarify the argument, the definition of the motion, because the first speaker of the government has not really make a limitation on where this case happened. And then because opposition team would like to limit this situation in Indonesia. So basically we need to think, why did the Indonesia, for example, they can give criminal records to the consensually by the potential employees. For example, this scenario is like this: the employers want to have employees, and therefore they ask the potential employees to give them their criminal records, and they ask this consensually. And it's an agreement that if they want to join the company, they have to give them the criminal records so they can calculate the risk. And because of that, they go to the potential employees goes to the police department and ask about the criminal records, and the police department gave it to them, and then they gave it to the potential employees gave it to the employers. So why is this happen in the first place? Well, it's basically because companies rely on data about the potential employers, and one of the data is criminal records. Why is there criminal records in the first place? Criminal records is for the employers to know that the potential employee have done such crime. And why does crimes in the past matters? Well, the government team has already said that they will not have a tendency to do that because they're only doing silly things in the past. They are only doing some things. They're breaking the law because they struggled in it. Well, we have the data from the Faculty of Law of University of Jenderal Sudirman that in 2015 that 80% of the people who've committed crimes in Indonesia actually committed crime again. So that shows that people who have done crimes in the past, they will done it again in the future. It's risk. It's not an absolute. Okay, go on.
These people are likely to commit crime again because they have been denied a chance to get a job and improve their life. Your statistic does not take getting a job into context. Thank you.
Well, basically, you don't give any proof that in your first speech. So basically, in this, you don't give any good arguments on why that happens. So basically, happens every crimes that have done by the criminals. 80% of them will do it again. This is what the statistics have said. And then if we analyze, if we want to employ an employee, we want our company to be safe, right? We don't want that for all of a sudden there's the money of the company is lost, is stolen. We don't want that to happen, and therefore the employers want to calculate the risk. Like by seeing the records, they know, oh, this person have done this person have done that, so they can calculate the risk plus their skills. The skills is also being considered in this for employing employee, so that the company can not have their money lost because of this potential crime. So basically, my signposting is that why this happened is because it to prevent potential crime, and then second that the criminal records should be given consensually by the employees, like what really happens in Indonesia. And the third, there should be a law that governing these criminal records. But before that, I would like to rebut the first argument from the government team. They said about the criminal records for hiring decisions that the criminal records that the employers can abuse this. So we, as the opposition, would like to make a law that will not let employers misuse the criminal records. We would like to make a law, for example, if they misuse this, they will get punished. So if there's a law, people won't do this kind of abuse. That's first. And then the government team talks about discrimination. No, there's no such discrimination in this type of thing. There's no status appearance. The government team talks about status appearance. There's no such thing as that. There's no such thing as that in here. What are considered is what they have done in the past, and then it is considered to be one of the risk calculations on should they hire these potential employees or not. So basically, there's no discriminations. And then we know that when company wants to employ an employee, they're not only considering, oh, just because you have steal some brats in the past, we will not accept you. No, they will understand what's happening. They can also ask to the potential employees about why they done the crimes in the past, and they can calculate the risk. Oh, should we accept this employee or not? He's skillful. His curriculum vitae have so many skills. So this should not be that criminal records is not the main focus on employing an employee. It's one of the reasons to employ the employee. So basically, what I'm trying to say that this showing criminal records to to employers by consensually by the employees first and then to the employers is to know if they have done something in the past and they can prevent it in the future. They don't want it to do that because there are statistics that says that if people done something in the past, that's crime in the past, they will do it again in the future. There's statistics in that. And then the second is that the data that wants to be given given to the employers should be given to the employees first and then to the employers, not directly from the government to the employers. And then there should be a law governing this criminal record, so there's no abuse of the information of this information. So that's all what I'm trying to say. There's so many arguments that I've given this, and after that it will be told by the second speaker. Thank you.
The first speaker from the opposition team spent 7 minutes and 17 seconds.
Okay, thank you. I call upon the second speaker from the government team.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. You can just POI me straightforward. I will start my speech in 1, 2, 3. Hello, Mr. Chairman. My name is Miguel Samuel. I'm the second speaker of the government side. Now I will point out some of the questionable arguments and questionable assertion made by the opposition team. Firstly, they talk about that people who want to get a job will consensually give their criminal record. This is really, really questionable because most of the times, if you don't give criminal records, it's a non-acceptable thing to do. So you don't get into the company, for example. This is not consensual. This is extortion. You see, with doing this, it's not an consensual kind of behavior because these criminals it's not consensual. I mean, they are not giving their criminal records on the basis that they want to give it. It is in the basis that they want to leave off the job, so they have to give it. This is really not consensual, Mr. Chairman. And the second thing that I'm bringing up is that about the stats diversity of Jenderal Sudirman. This is really, really questionable data also because it really doesn't support their stances because it doesn't show that this criminal do the same criminal while in employment. It's actually kind of supporting our stance because it shows that by not giving jobs to these criminals, it's only giving them a more desperation to go back to the crime life. So it's only show the benefit of not giving criminal records to employers. The second thing that I also bring up is about discrimination and discrimination problem. My first speaker already said that there's an automated system about that. And it shows that the first speaker of the opposition doesn't listen correctly to the first speaker of the government. Now that all my rebuttal is done, I will go to my first point. My first point is what is the real impact and why is giving criminal records to employer is really harmful to people in poverty and to people who do this kind of crime and really inhumane to them. Firstly, these kind of people who have time, as I said, my first speaker said, to apply to jobs and to go search for jobs, it's actually petty crimes, as my first speaker already said. So this show that this kind of people is actually desperate people, unemployed people, and already poor people. By doing this, it actually robbed them of the second chance they have in life and actually condemn them to either a life of criminal or death because of hunger and poverty. So giving access to criminal records actually make them non-favorable to jobs. This is really bad because, as I said before, they cannot get the job and get a second life. Just take an example. For example, a thief caught stealing a wallet. Of course, he steals his wallet because he doesn't have any money. If he actually a really rich guy or a really guy in high power, he will do he will most likely do kind of higher level of crimes. For example, corruption, money laundering, tax fraud. So we already show that this kind of people is a poor people, desperate people who just want to eat. So but they doesn't have a choice, so they do these petty crimes. and after they getting their sentence, they will return as a normal citizen again. But with these criminal records, it's actually they are not a civilian; they are still a criminal. This is so wrong, Mr. Chairman, because it actually condemned them to becoming a criminal and denied a chance to get back to normal civilian life. This is why not only giving opening criminal records to employees, but criminal records itself is actually non-beneficial and actually questionable to be implemented. So this is really inhumane because it's actually condemning one's life into unending life of poverty if you do this. So therefore, access to criminal records should be denied to employers, people who have correct authorization to see this, because this is really bad for these kind of people. And the last point I will bring up is about what's the impact of applying state policy of allowing employers to see criminal records will do to the future of the country and the country in general. So this will solve nothing actually for the crime problem and only increase crime rates. And of course, crime rates will affect economy of the country. Why are others to say that? I will elaborate. Firstly, let's go back to the first argument I bring up. That the criminal records only lock this kind of people to poverty, and I said before that the perpetrators of said thieving and petty crimes are poor people. So this only make a circle of unending criminal doing, because this kind of people cannot go to civilian life and only become a criminal, and this will increase the crime rate, of course. And as you can see, that crime rates will only make the economy of the country suffer. Why I can say that? Because not only the workforce of the country will deteriorate over the time because of this workforce doesn't. I mean, the workforce doesn't go back to civilian life and they become criminals. It's also swaying away the investors. Of course, the investors doesn't want to invest in a crime-infested country. For example, just take the country like Venezuela. Why do you think Venezuela is in economic ruin? One of the reasons is actually Venezuela is the higher rate of crime. This shows that criminals does not going back to their civilian life will actually damage the economy in a significant way. So, Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, that these kind of policies will be inhumane to criminals just trying to go back to civilian life, and this kind of policies will damage the country and its future from its economic damage of its economy and its workforce. Therefore, this policy shouldn't be implemented, and the employers should not be allowed access to see criminal records of the employees. This is all of my speech. Thank you.
Okay, the second speaker of the government team spent 7 minutes and 18 seconds.
Thank you. I call upon the second speaker from the opposition team.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, thank you very much. Starting speech in
Yes.
three. Starting speech in 3, 2, 1. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for the chance to give it to me as the second speaker of the opposition team. And I would like to first oppose the motions moved by the second speaker of the government. He is stating about the real impacts on why giving criminal records are impactful. He often explained about the unemployed and poor people who have the tendency to rob again, to do criminal things again. Well, sir, I want to ask you something. What about your government, for instance? What is happening in your government that is having too many crimes regarding corruption, for instance? How you as a government try to recruit staffs in the first place? Are you going to just trust them right away that okay, this is a poor people, we have to take a good care of him, why maybe we could give him a job, all those? But you as a government, let's say that a government is somewhat a company that is job is to govern. First of all, how do you regulate the fact that you are recruiting people or you want people to serve in your government that is without any consent of any data about their experiences in the past? And when I'm talking about experiences, it doesn't always mean skills. Experiencing or experiences on making crimes, for example, do they have the experience to do so? Right? Well, is there ever any company who bluntly just trusts the employee to, okay, you have the qualification, go to work? Is there? If you can, just prove it. Yes, please.
Does corruption already have a life sentence in their sentence, so they cannot go back to civilian life?
They have life sentences. Then why you keep repeating them? Why you keep repeating on them, for instance, right? Well, let's move on for a moment. I am talking about any company that would bluntly just give the details out and okay, you get to work without any consension of how the experience. And if you think of do so, if you think that they are still a criminal, they want a second chance, then why you as the government cannot even regulate those kind of things? The companies have their own standardization. Your government has your own standardization. So because of that, why don't you just try to regulate? Which is why don't you just implement something that would regulate these kinds of criminal records of access of criminal records to be justified on both sides? You keep on keeping on saying that okay, this is an injustice for the unemployed poor people that have the tendency to make another crime. Well, that is why the regulation holds in the first place. Because when there's a regulation, you can strengthen on how the criminal records are being given. And that's what the company wants, because they want to seek for standardization. They want to seek for qualification from their potential employees. Furthermore, he is saying that correct authorization we need correct people or correct body to be authorized to see this. That is why you should implement a law. You are not implementing any laws whatsoever. And that is what we are going to bring. Well, moving on. You say that Venezuela is inflating. Well, how come you can say Venezuela is inflating because of this kind of robbery, these kinds of poor people? They are inflating because they are printing more money. You don't know how economy runs, don't you? Okay, moving on. I would like to say about the thing that I've stated before, and that is what kind of law we can implement. You as the government should think of this, but unfortunately you don't. Okay, let's go to the law that we as the opposition team would have proposed if we were the government, unlike you. The first one is this law will prove or actually restrict that data is given by the consensus. That means if this motion is stating that this house will give employers access, it doesn't mean that employers have access directly to any source of criminal records so that they could investigate it at the first place without any consension of the employee. That is a fatal and crucial thing to be noted.
Eli,
Yes.
if I as a potential employee is under that regulation, I would probably likely to not apply to any jobs because of that. How will you guarantee me a good future? Thank you.
How would we guarantee a good future? Why do you try to get into the job at the place? You are going to get into the job, you should be concerned about the regulations that is being authorized by the job maker, right? How can we guarantee the future? Well, this is the law that we are implementing, and you haven't heard it all. So please be patient. Second, it should be written an agreement between the two sides. Well, if you are going to give this private data to the job seeker, well, you have to be consent. You have to be consentfully be eligible enough that okay, you have the access to the data. Now the question will lie on how the data is. Well, the employers hold the responsibility to the moral right of the employee that have those kind of cases. Well, if you do not want to make this a restriction in things so that they do not have the future, then we should at least regulate those employers to just try to think of this is the data that we have access to, and we hold the accountable moral responsibility to keep the data private. And that is, for example, should not share any of the data. That is mandatory, and that is the thing that you stated before, like the misuse of the data. Next, you are saying that employers could just try to revoke the data and do it as for their own free will. Well, this law will regulate it. If the employer is found guilty of misusing the data, the employee has the right to forcefully uphold the right to ask for the responsibilities of the employees, the employers. The employees has the moral right. They have the accountability for the law, and that is so that they could manage themselves. You want freedom for them? Well, they have the freedom. If you're trying to keep on thinking on short-term solutions, that is, okay, just don't give the criminal records right away. Well, you as the government, I would like to ask is that how do you regulate yourself to try to ask people to join your government and work for you? How? Next, it should not violate the regulation regarding the use of private data. We can all agree on this, don't we? Okay. But the way you are opposing this is as if any data out there should not be given. Well, at the first place, that data could be misrepresented too, right? So because we want to forbid or we want to restrict this misrepresentation of the data, we are trying to give security to the employees so that they could keep the data, and that is with consension. That is very fatal. This is about consension. We can all agree that if the employees got the data right away from a black source, well, that's not the case. We want consension. We want consension for the employees so that they have moral right. Also, they have the justice for the data. Well, crime tendency is going up high. Then if you want to regulate, you should have regulated in the first place. It's not our job to regulate. We are just trying to oppose your motion. So in the end, this motion should be completely opposed, and we should provide security for the data given. Thank you very much.
Okay, the second speaker from the opposition team spends 7 minutes and 20 seconds.
Thank you. I call upon the third speaker from the government team.
Hello, am I lagging?
No, you're not.
Okay, please tell me when I'm lagging, yeah, because the previous speaker I was lagging.
Oh.
So if I lag in the middle of my speech, please tell me. Please just cut me or chat because I probably can hear it.
Can you turn on your camera?
I think that will make me more laggy.
Okay.
Yeah, so sorry. Okay. Okay, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, let's all calm down and see the outcome that this debate will go, right? So the first thing that I want to clarify as a third speaker from the government side of the House, we want to characterize one more thing. Let's have 2 cases. The first cases is the ex-convict people will likely to apply for low-level jobs anyway, and that low-level jobs will bring low-level risk even in the worst case scenario when there is when this ex-convicted happens to commit another crime. So in our arguments, we have given you the contextualization from my first speaker on what is the potential employees, right? And why did that potential employees comes to begin with to find a job to begin with, right? And we also contextualize what kind of criminal record that these potential employees might have, right? These criminal records that this employee might have, and the application that these employees will go, it will most likely to go to a low-level job which have a low-level risk in the first place. Not the corruption, not to the biggest, not thank you to the biggest government stream, right? That is being mentioned by the opposition side. No, we are not contextualizing about that. And their argument, they're argued about that kind of things happens to be some sort of they did not even elaborate, they did not even give foundations of why they thought that this kind of people, the potential employees on applicants, right, to be this massive mafia things, the things that they've been exaggerating from the second speaker, right? So we are not talking about that. We give better contextualization to these potential employees to begin with. The second case is that we want to characterize again. For example, what if I ask you, I've worked hard 10 years developing my skills, but then I have one little shoplifting charges 10 years ago, right? With the opposite side of the House argument, when they say that we should shut records, right? They said that companies will heavily heavily consider if they have this kind of the criminal records, right? Then no other subway station, for example, or even Alfamart, Indomaret, right, will likely to employ this kind of people. And that is the company loss to begin with, right? Because it is the company interest to begin with to hire people who have a certain amount of qualification, their ability, their capability to, stock himself, and etc., right? And this is the loss of the company to begin with when they argue that it was not right. It's the loss of the company to hire this kind of people to begin with. It is a loss opportunity of talents from the minorities, right? So by this characterization, by this contextualization, the government side of the house wins another point that we bring a better contextualization in the terms of the company interest, right? Okay, let's get it down out of the way. Now I'm going to move to the mistakes that they bring from the first speaker and the second speaker, right? They keep talking about consensus in the first speaker. But like what has been mentioned by my second speaker, it is not consensus, it is extortion. Please get that right. And then the second one, they keep saying about the statistics, like they think that they said that the statistics says that crime will repeat and again and again and again. People who are ex-convicted will try to commit another crime again, right? But they give no contextualization of the data that actually there is a job that these people that have been ex-convicted that is committing another crime, whether or not they go through a certain job or not, right? They did not give an elaboration on that. Hence, the statistic to begin with, their fundamental argument to begin with in the first speaker, right, cannot be counted as a point at all, since it is irrelevant, it is insignificant to the debate whatsoever, since it does not even touch the main point, which is about the applicants, the potential employees itself, and how do they get a job to begin with. Right? That's all. No, thank you. That's the mistakes of the opposite of the house. For the remaining time, I would like to give a very brief comparisons, right, towards two major clashing points sides give better outcomes, right? We argue, the government side of the house, we argue that equal chance should be given to all the employees, right? We link that in our world, we contextualize that in our modern world, right, where job is a fundamental thing to have if you want to live, right, to fulfill your basic need, to give food on your plates, family, right? Or even to grant you leisure things, right? So job is a fundamental basic needs. And if you want to live, you must have one. So that's why it is crucial for us as the government. We cannot be selfish, right? As a government, we have to think about these people that has been ex-convicted. Like we have to give them an equal chance to get a better life, because they're also, as we also elaborate on our first and second speaker, they have gone through this law process, right? They have been convicted, they have gone through this law process, the rehabilitation is there, the justice is there, they have served time, they served this and served that in the jail, whatever you want to say it, right? So by the time that they go outside and looking for an opportunity to life, like we must give them the same chance, the same equal chance as anyone else, right? We do not believe to give an access for employers to the employee criminal records, right? That is the case. We win here in the objectivity, where the open set of the house, they argue about their statistic data, their consensus, their money. They didn't even touch our arguments on this thing. They didn't even touch our contextualization and the outcome that we give the better opportunity of life to this kind of people, right? They argued, but they did not give an alternative of how can these kind of people, the one that is ex-convicted, can have a better life, right? They did not give this alternative. They did not give this elaboration. What are the other ways for these people to get a job? What are the other ways for these people to live a happy life, like to get money, to fulfill their basic needs, right? Well, if they fail to elaborate that, then of course, might as well, the guy will probably stress and will probably commit another crime, right? So for this point, for the point who gives a better outcome should win to the government side of the house, right? And then the second one, we believe that we give the better justice system, right? We give the better justice system where we already argued, the first speaker already argued, that subjectivity tend to be realized under when we give access to the employers granted access to the employee criminal records, right? Because there are traumas from the employees. Perhaps, maybe for an example, there's traumas, and if it happens that the interviewer have the same criminal records as the trauma that the employees have, then there will be stigma. There will be a disadvantage. And we believe that under this value of justice, we give a better justice system to the people who are ex-convicted, and the opposite side lacking in elaboration and in contextualization of that to begin with, right? Conclude, a criminal record can have a significant impact on a person's employment prospects. Eliminating discrimination on this basis is an important step toward enhancing equality of employment opportunity for people with a criminal record. At the same time, it might be appropriate to differentiate between people when inherent requirement a job required that a person does not have particular convictions. Thank you. Oh, so sorry. The timer froze at 6:50. So sorry.
Okay, but I remind you from the chat as well. Okay, the third speaker from the government team spans 7 minutes and 30 seconds, 37 seconds.
Thank you. I call upon the third speaker from the opposition team.
Excuse me, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Speech start in 3, 2, 1. And I want to, for this point, I am, as the third speaker, I would like to review and summarize the point have been made by my team, that is the opposition team. First, I would like to review the points made by the third speaker of the government group. First, they said that conflict people doesn't apply for low-level jobs. It doesn't matter. Companies still want their well-being and rights to be protected, even if it's these convicts are applying for low-level jobs. It doesn't matter because it can harm the company if these low-level people are doing criminal things again that they are already committed in the past. And then they said that there means people who are do petty crimes only that only to be protected by this motion. The people who are seek jobs are not only people who are do petty crimes. They could be people who do serious crimes that applying for this job, and that's why companies needs to know, even though they are only applying for low-level jobs, they need to know what their employees like. They need to know what the potential employees like, because it is going to impact on the company performance, on the company well-being, on the company rights. And then the second point bring up by the third speaker is to our points are made are to shut down people that have worked hard even though they're professional, because they do petty crimes and loss. And that say that it is a loss to the companies. First, it's already been suggested before that we can talk about it. We can the employer can talk about can ask to the potential employees what they did, what is the
POI, madam.
POI not accepted. What is the crimes they did in the past, and then by actually speaking about it, by actually talking about it, the employer had better understanding of the crimes they have committed by these people who are applying for jobs, especially because the government all keep saying about the petty crimes. And then the third point made by the and the third point made by the third speaker that I want to rebut is that you keep bringing about this equal chance. It is actually brought by our team that we are actually opposing. We are actually proposing this law to give equality to people who had to have crimes before. And then next, I want to summarize the points made by my teams, and I want to do signposting first. First, that I'm going to summarize is why companies need to know their potential employees' criminal records. Second, the basis of why companies need to know their potential employees' criminal records. Third, consensuality linked to the motion. And then the fourth is law opposition team has proposed. Okay, let me start for my first point. Why companies need to know their employee criminal records? It is good for the company, essentially. It is to protect the rights and the well-being of the company. And then employer won't take risks to the well-being of the company. They won't take risks to make the company name look bad. Especially because these companies are making the job market for people in the first place. And And then the second is the basis of why companies
POI, madam.
POI rejected. The basis of why companies needs to know their potential employee criminal record. It is to like I said before that the employer won't take risks of the well-being of the company. Besides, criminal records are not the main focus of the employer that the employer sees in the potential employee. They saw the CV, they saw the skill that they had, not only the criminal record. And then next is the consensuality linked to the motion. It's already been said before that the employer cannot misuse it, but they can hold on to it as a preventive move. And then because our team has brought out about the tendencies of these people who to do the crimes again, we this consensuality actually changing the potential employee behavior by the employer for their own good, to make sure that the employee, when they are accepted, not going to do these crimes they have committed in the first place.
FTUI in the name of justice.
Rejected. And then the last thing is I want to bring up is the law opposition team have proposed. It's already been said before. Hence, law should be built around this consensuality and to protect the privacy of the potential employee and the employer, that include: 1, data is given consension of the two sides; 2nd, not sharing criminal records to outside of the company; 3rd, there should be a written agreement, example like disclosure agreement; 4th, if found guilty, employee have full rights to withdraw and ask for responsibility; and 6th, it should be not violate any privacy law. And that's all for the summarize. And we as the as the opposition team still believe that this motion should be opposed, and that's why we as the opposition team win this debate. Thank you.
Okay, the third speaker from the opposition team spans 7 minutes and 48 seconds.
Thank you. I call upon the reply speaker from opposition team.
Okay, so good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Muhammad Valfaza, and I'm here as the reply speaker of the opposition team. And the motion is still, this House will not give employers access to criminal records of potential employees. And we as the government think that we should win this debate because we have so many arguments that have not been rebutted. So basically what I'm going to bring is the method of pointing flashes. And this is where I point out what are our arguments and what are rebuttals that have been given by the government team. So basically, the government teams gave arguments about unlikely tendency of people that have done crime. While we has already been rebutted that with the data that people that have done crime, 80% of them will do the crime again. So the risk is high. That's what the prime minister, the leader of the opposition, have given in his first speech. And then the government team also said about that this will lead to discrimination, that giving criminal records to employers will give discriminations to the potential employee. We already give that. We already rebutted that by saying that there's actually no discrimination because this is only a data about criminal records, no status and appearance that have been rebutted. And of course, they also said about that it will be abuse and there will be misuse of data. And we as the opposition team would like to already have said about their arguments about making this criminal records sharing regulated. We already said that. So these are some of the arguments that have been rebutted by the opposition team. And then the government team already said about, by showing criminal records to the employers, it will cause the potential employee to be rejected. Well, as already said by the leader of opposition, the employers can actually ask the employee of what they actually done in the past. The government basically have limited the case that it's not a mass murder, but it's only a petty stealing that have struggled in the past. And we as the opposition team followed that, and we gave an argument that employers can ask what happens to that employee. What did they do so that they commit a crime? And because of that, they can calculate the risk. So remember, we gave an argument that by giving criminal records to the employers, it can make the employers calculate the risk of this potential employee. So this is very important for the health of the company. And we've already said about there are some arguments that have not been rebutted. And that's about the data of potential crime. The opposition team, the government team have not been rebutted have not rebutted about our arguments about preventing potential crime. And these arguments about preventing potential crime is still standing. And then we've already regulated about consensual data privacy. And these arguments have not also been rebutted by the government is still standing. And the third speaker has already said about what are the alternative given by the opposition of what will actually happen. So we have already said that we give a law that governing this criminal record sharing, the law about equality that is given by the second speaker of the opposition team. We have already given the alternative. So that's the arguments actually has already been rebutted before that arguments have already been given. And then the arguments about consensual is already still standing because the second speaker already said that it is actually consensual because they already gave the agreement and they can ask it consensually. They're not forced. So that's all of my reply speech. Because of all of these arguments, we believe as the opposition team that we should win this debate. Thank you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
All right, as government reply speech, to confirm, I have 4 minutes to speak. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Dear judges, thank you so much for paying attention to this debate. Let me review it for you. First of all, I would like to outline the main clashes in debate in 3 forms. First of all, the justification. Second of all, which side defends vulnerable people better? And finally, which side gives the companies the most amount of benefit or least amount of harms? First of all, let me outline how both teams did their role in this debate. First of all, government did their setup very well, gave a clear model about how the database will be handled by legal institutions, how limitations and regulations are done on the basis of hiring, and how requests for it will be denied and how discrimination will be dealt. Meanwhile, opposition's model is simply based on a morally questionable and foggy mechanism which ultimately restricts the data on basically forcing and extorting people to give it away for the purpose of getting hired. Second of all, we as government give a far deeper characterization about the interests of the company and the vulnerable people. We, through our model, gave a better parameter of privacy and anti-discrimination protection. Meanwhile, the opposition side didn't give a deep reason why would vulnerable people want to find a job with their model, and why it is in the interest of the company to apply it besides simply being averted to risks. And finally, their statistics cannot be considered in this debate because their data is not supported by logic. Meanwhile, government has provided the chain of logic that an 80% chance of redoing crime is because of unemployment. And we point out that statistic actually doesn't have a connection with employment, and therefore it should be thrown out of the debate. First of all, the clash of principle justification. We have a legal system, and we say these ex-convicts have already served their justice, and therefore they do not deserve any further discrimination. Meanwhile, opposition's model is on the basis of extortion, which they frame as consent. Why would I, as a vulnerable person who has a criminal record, be able to apply? You will not accept me if I have a criminal record. You starve me, you deny me of my right to contribute to society. Their model is absolutely morally questionable, and we have clearly explained why. We have explained their best case and our worst case scenario. Our worst case scenario, sure, the person gets denied the job due to their criminal record, but they're still free to apply again. There's still the chance of getting a job and reintegrating to society. However, in opposition's case, they absolutely block out anyone with even a single mention of criminal record. And if they say, oh, we will ask the applicant, we have pointed out from the first speaker that these days job applications are automated. And it is likely that through this automation, any applications with even a mention of criminal record are instantly filtered out, not even being given the opportunity to be considered. I have explained this in my first speaker speech. Second of all, characterization of vulnerable people. Look, you say, oh, what if the vulnerable people act up again? We have a legal system. They can simply be put back to jail if it's that serious. We know these are not psychos, and this is low-level jobs with low risk. Meanwhile, you shut down jobs. Your best case is starving and poverty, a mass minority. So you are literally committing genocide. Finally, why is it in the interest of companies? They say, oh, the companies will lose loss. If I'm a cash register at Walmart and I steal $5, is Jeff Bezos going to be mad at me? No, Walmart is not going to crash down. We say that providing a growth chance for human resources is far better for society as a whole, as my second speaker said. So we give better, clear outcome, better, clear opportunity, and we give a better understanding in this debate. We contributed a better picture, and that is why, if you believe in justice, vote for government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that is the end of the debate. As this debate is a silent round, the debaters may directly proceed to the debaters hall for the breaking announcement. Thank you.